God bless you, sir. He says,
I'd like to ask
yeah.
Mr. Gilbert a question. In the Master Mason's degree, would you please explain to us the meaning of the ritual of Hiram Abiff? What is seeking to be conveyed in the ritual of Hiram Abiff for us?
You want me to explain, to give an outline of it? Well, in the third craft degree, what is done is the story is given. And bear in mind, these are mythical stories. They seem to have a quasi-biblical setting, but they're not, in any sense, biblical stories. The story built around the building of the first temple, and Hiram Abiff is allegedly the architect. He is he's asked by these three villains to give secrets of the building. And he says, no, I'm not going to do this. And because he won't do it, because he's a man who's true to his word, they kill him. And then he is buried. And the remainder of the degree concerns the way in which his body is discovered, and it is brought out of this bad interment, and then it is decently reburied with the honour he deserved from whom he was. Now the candidate is treated as if he was Hiram Abiff. He is not killed, obviously, but he is treated as if he too, refusing to give away what he knows, is slain, and he is then lifted out of this grave. He is not in any sense raised from the dead. The whole story is about the decent burial of an honourable man. It is not in any way whatsoever a ritual of death and resurrection. That is a false interpretation put upon by people who don't understand it, who appear, if they have gone through it, to have completely misunderstood it. In no circumstances can it be seen as a death and resurrection ritual. That is a total, absolute misconstruction and misunderstanding of what it is.
Yes, sir.
Let me say that many worshipful masters that have renounced the lodge would completely disagree with that statement because they oversaw the lodge. It is intended to convey death and resurrection. Let me just quote to you what J.D. Buck said in his book, Symbolism and Mystic Masonry. He says, every soul must work out its own salvation and take the kingdom of heaven by force. Salvation by faith and the vicarious atonement were not taught, as now interpreted by Jesus, nor are these doctrines taught in the exoteric scriptures. They are later and ignorant perversions of the original doctrines. In the early church, as in the secret doctrine, there was not one Christ for the whole world, but a potential Christ in every man. Theologians first made a fetish of the impersonal, omnipresent divinity, and then tore the Christos from the hearts of all humanity in order to deify Jesus. And then you have another gentleman, Wilmshurst, who in his book, The Meaning of Masonry, goes on to say, again, the squaring of the circle, that problem which has baffled so many modern mathematicians, is an occult expression signifying that deity, symbolized all-containing circle, has attained form and manifestation in a square or human soul. Now, I've heard over and over tonight, it's not a religion. We don't teach any kind of syncretistic religion. Worshipful masters who have renounced the lodge say, oh, yes, we did. Those who grand lodges respect their understanding of the meanings all say, oh, it is a religion. We're just not a sectarian religion. And therefore, I think these statements are circumventing the real essence of what Freemasonry is. To make it a cloud, Freemasonry presents itself as a humanitarian organization. And we're not here to dispute some of the things that they do in helping children and things like this. But others have said that that's a shield to cover up what really goes on.
Well, then the question is, sir, coming back to you, Uncle Bob, is that if these things are not really that important, if they just play, acting, and all those bits, why would that's the question some people out there would ask. Why would intellectuals, doctors, lawyers, engineers spend their life studying and studying things from one degree to another, sitting one exam after the other? Why is it necessary?
Well, it's not necessary. They just enjoy it. They wouldn't do it if they didn't. But I can actually say now, this question of saying worshipful masters have come out of it, have said that it is a death and resurrection ritual. With respect, I would say they've completely misunderstood what they've been doing. I was the master of my own lodge. I have raised people in the third degree. It is patently not a death and resurrection ritual. Just read it and see if you can show it as such, because it isn't. And as for people like J.D. Bach, who was writing from himself, so was Wilmshurst, they were giving personal opinions that are in no sense binding upon anybody. And they should not be treated as authoritative, because we don't. We don't take the works of any theologian and say, you must accept what he says because he is a Christian. We might say, no, well, he's not a very good Christian and he doesn't understand the Bible. He doesn't understand what it's about. This doesn't mean you should use the writings of odd and bad theologians to deny Christianity. And it's a parallel to it to take the writings of people who have written about Freemasonry with very little understanding of what's involved, who have taken a very strange interpretation and presented it, and then the books have been sold and widely distributed. But what is unfortunate is that there has been very little done by Grand Lodges to rebut this. It doesn't need a question of saying this is what it means, just to say this is not right because. I have tried to do this to a limited extent in some of the things I have written, but my books have not been circulated as widely and have not been taken up as eagerly by those who attack us, because it doesn't work for them.
You know, yeah, you want to say something?
Yes. The idea that these others are speaking for themselves, what I find amazing is all these men that I've quoted tonight are saying the same thing. They are these men that I'm quoting for, who Grand Lodges are saying they have understood the meaning of the lodge. They all agree. And what would be interesting is our guest tonight would stand as a great exception to the rest of the Masonic world, because the rest of the Masonic world speaks with a unanimity on many issues.
Thank you, sir. I came across a book called The Brotherhood, written by a gentleman called Stephen Knight. And in that book, I saw that he made some statement. He said, when you proceed, you can enter into different channels. Some can enter into the Christian channel, and some can go through other channels. And he said there was a particular one, because it's been a long time I read the book, in which you have to, part of the ritual involves putting a fez cap on your head, a red one, the fez one that the Arabs put on. And apparently that's to signify something sinister, in the sense that when the Crusaders or Christians were being murdered amongst the Arabs, they had white hat on, and they dipped the white hat in the blood of the Christians, before putting it back on their head. So it's like designed to mock. I don't know whether you know all this or it's just been taken out of context. I'm
aware of that story. Whether it's true, I have no idea. The idea that the people who killed Christians in Fez, which is why it's supposed to be called a Fez, because that's where it came from in Morocco. Whether that's true or not, I do not know. But that headgear is worn by the Shriners, which is one of these offshoots of Masonry in America, which we don't have in this country. And I can't speak about it because I don't know much about it. I know it exists. I know it has some very strange ideas. But I would also point out that in terms, I can't speak for individual Masons, and there are probably something like 4 to 5 million worldwide. So to take the writings of a small number of them, and if you look at the numbers of Masonic authors, the writers of Masonic books, there are many thousands. The books taken from which Freemasonry is attacked are few in number. Now, unfortunately, I have no knowledge of why some Grand Lodges said, oh, these are the most authoritative books. I suspect they misinterpreted what was being asked of them in terms of what was most popular being read in their libraries. And in the case of Coyle's Encyclopedia, it's the only Masonic encyclopedia that's up to date, and in terms of its historical information, reasonably accurate. So this is presumably why they presented this. Why they picked the others, I can't say. I don't know. But I could produce a list for you of Masonic books which give a totally different picture. Like Chris Hafner's Workman Unashamed, in which he explains how he can justify being a Christian and a Freemason, is a marvelous book on the subject. It gives a totally different picture. It isn't referred to. Anti-Masons don't read those. I read anti-Masonic books written by alleged Christians, some of which are total distortion of